We need to engage those people from the community to work with the community. And in doing so, I think we recognize their strengths, their expertise, what they can teach us about teaching their children.
Why would you make a laundromat a place for parents to encourage language and early literacy? Well, because that's where families spend a lot of time together. Susan Neuman looks for places where parents spend time with their children and then transforms those places into areas where parents are teaching children the vocabulary related to those places. In this video, Susan describes how she's employing Principle 2, designing interventions around family strengths, around the things that families naturally do with their children and the words they use in those settings. She also talks about how she's employing Principle 7, including members of the community in her research as trusted messengers, people who reflect the cultural diversity of the local neighborhoods. These trusted messengers help convey the importance of a language to families, but they also help the research team understand the families. Both of these principles are important ways that researchers can work toward achieving equity through their work. Well, Susan, I'm so glad we had an opportunity to talk this afternoon. What I'd like to talk with you about this afternoon is some of your more recent work on how you're advocating promoting children's language in their everyday environments.
Sure. Well, I have to say, this is a passion of mine to begin with. And the reason it came about actually was for a long time, we've been telling parents what to do. And despite much of our work, parents resist this a little bit. And we've seen increasing resistance among parents when they're being told what to do. So we began to recognize that we needed to understand what parents do and the strengths that they bring to any intervention in any setting. And so we began actually by doing a ethnography. We looked at what families do during the average day in the course of activities during that day, when they talk to children, when they're actively engaged with them. And it turns out that they're often actively engaged in activities like going to the grocery store, going to the bank, going to the laundromat. And we began to say that these settings, these very everyday settings, provided a context for parents and children to talk. And that talk was really, really good, Judy, because one of the things we found is that the vocabulary that they would begin to use was very contextual bound. In other words, they talked about words related to the laundromat. They talked about words related to the grocery store. They talked about words related to going to the bank. And that can enlarge their vocabulary, enrich the conversational turns between parents and children. And so we began to understand that it's not only about parents and children, but it's actually about parents, children, and their community. And that community has an environmental press on what you and I do, which is very important. And we began to understand that in these everyday settings, like the laundromat, parents are engaging with their children. Children are learning patterning. They're learning all sorts of sorting activities, gauging and talk. But there are also some people in the laundromat and the people in the neighborhood where there's a good deal of interaction between not only parents and children, but these what we came to be called trusted messengers, or people in the community that are inherently trusted by their community.
This idea of a trusted messenger. So it seems like what you're advocating for here is not only employing the contexts where families are, but employing the important people in those contexts that can make a difference in reaching the the families that you're working with?
Judy, that's so true. So what we found is these trusted messengers, these people who are local, who know the families, who can go up to a family and say, "Hi, how are you?" Even though they don't maybe know the family personally, but they know the neighborhood, they've gone to the same school, they go to the same grocery store, they walk the same blocks. And these people are very important because they often are from the same socioeconomic setting. They are from the neighborhood, so they care about that neighborhood. They're often similar in racial and linguistic backgrounds. And as a result, there's a comfort level when they begin to interact with children and the parents in that environment. So we worked with a group called Global Citizens. And Global Citizens recognized the power of trusted messenger. And they said, we're going to get people together. We're going to give them only a t-shirt. They're going to be volunteers in the community. But they're going to go in places like the laundromat, and they're going to read to children. They're going to talk to parents about what parents need or might benefit from in their community. What we found is these informal interactions actually connected with families. They provided information. Very often they provided resources. Quietly, sometimes I would see a trusted messenger go up to a child and say, "Isn't your birthday coming up soon? Can I give you a little present to take home?" And she would hand the child a book just to take home on their own. Another time, a trusted messenger spoke to a child and said, "Would it be more comfortable if I spoke in your language? Because I know that you might be wanting to hear this story, but may not understand English. Would that be more comfortable?" And the child quietly said, "Yes, it would be."
It seems like what you're talking about here in terms of the principles that we um, uh, lay out in our paper is really the second principle, the principle of making sure that our interventions are really recognizing family strengths and building on those strengths.
We conducted research with people from the neighborhood who were our research assistants and the sensitive behavior research. And we began to realize the subtle ways that these trusted messengers conveyed cultural and linguistically responsive interactions. And as a result, there were greater number of conversational turns between parent and child and parent and trusted messenger. And we saw an overall growth in children's vocabulary as a result of the intervention.
This is important not only so that our research has a greater impact on families and communities, but also it will result in greater sustainability of the interventions that we're trying to promote.
That's very true. We're going back after a year this April. It's been a year, and the activities are still ongoing, which is very, very exciting.
Right.
So I think that these everyday spaces are just critical. We started with the laundromat, but now we're going to the barber shop. We're going to artist hubs in New York City. We're expanding this work because we know that the community matters and that literacy in the community can really have a difference.